All right, before we get started, we're gonna talk a little bit of Ish here because one of you, I don't remember exactly, but the message really stood out to me. It legit grabbed my attention, but you made it seem like this one was just freaking phenomenal. All right, so I was like, let's go and check this mug out, man. I'll check out top 3 scariest stalker stories, Halloween Scare-A-Thon Part 2 by Mrballen. Dog, that's hella S's. What's good? How you day going? Morning, evening, night, whenever you're watching this video. And I have seen this thumbnail on my recommended a few damn times. So I was like, all right, you know what? Let's go and check this mug out. But either way it go, yo, we're gonna check out the original video. Link will be in the description below. But let's go.
Don't forget, we survived for 200,000 years without being anywhere near the top of the food chain. And our ancient ancestors were able to do that by developing survival instincts. And those survival instincts are still buried in our subconscious today. So when you have a bad feeling about something, like something's wrong here, I don't know what it is, you should listen to that because it might just save your life. Before I get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please sneak under the like button's chair and tie their shoelaces together. Also, please subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories.
Damn. He started this mug off with the suspense. I was like, oh, I'm ready, dude. I hear that.
By the summer of 2007, Chris had been working as a park ranger in southeastern Pennsylvania for a number of years, and by and large, he enjoyed his occupation. Some of the time, he got to do what he loved, which was hiking in the forest. And some of the time, it required doing something he hated, which was office work that usually required staying late at night. On one of those late nights, in August of 2007, Chris's boss, Mike, said that he needed to leave the office and go down the access road to this tool shed they had. He needed to get some equipment and bring it back up to the office for some reason, and he said he'd be back in about 15 minutes. As soon as Mike left, Chris decided, you know what, I'm gonna take a break from my work and I'm gonna step outside for a minute. Right in front of the office building was a little staff parking lot, and then about 50 meters beyond that was the edge of this really dense forest where the access road that Mike had just gone down to get to the tool shed basically split right through the middle and went straight out past the office. When Chris stepped outside to take his break, he sat down on the front steps that overlooked that parking lot and the access road, and he was just kind of looking out towards the forest, not thinking about what he was looking at, just kind of mindlessly sitting there, when all of a sudden he just started to feel like someone's watching me. And instinctively, he turned around to look back into the office, as if maybe someone was behind him, but he remembered that he and Mike were the only ones there that night, so no one's going to be behind him. And so he turned back around and he looked out at the parking lot and he didn't see any movement, and he looked down to the edge of the forest, which he could see because the moon was fairly bright that night, so the illumination was pretty good. And there was no movement against the tree line, there was no animals, there was no people, and Mike had not come back yet. So there's nothing going on in front of him, there's nothing going on behind him, but he just could not shake this feeling that someone was watching him.
Is it Mike?
Chris, you know, he's not easily spooked. He's used to being out in the forest in the daytime and at night. He's used to being at this office. A lot of times he worked at the office on his own at night. So he's used to this environment. And so he thought, you know what, I'm gonna go look around. And so he walks down the steps and he walks into the parking lot and he begins looking behind some of the cars. There's only a handful in the lot. There's nothing in the lot. And he keeps walking till he's about 10 meters away from the edge of the forest. And he looks into the forest and it's too dark to see anything. And there's nothing out here. There's no movement. There's no animals. Mike is still not back yet. And so even though he could not shake this sense that someone is watching him, he felt like, you know what? I did my diligence and there's no one out here, so it's just got to be in my head. And so he decides he's going to go back inside. And so he turns around and he starts walking back up towards the office, when all of a sudden he hears this whooshing sound come past his head. And he didn't know what it was, but it sounded like someone took a stick,
threw a rocket,
threw it overhand, so it was spinning like a tomahawk as it passed by his head. And because this sound was so loud and he was already on edge about someone potentially watching him,
I thought he threw a rocket. My bad.
loud and he was already on edge about someone potentially watching him that he actually dove as soon as he heard it and fell to the ground and scrambled around and looked at the tree line from where this thing came from, but there's no one there. And he scrambles to his feet and he's still looking around and he starts backpedaling towards the office with his eyes still on the forest, and his attention kind of shifts from the forest to what was just thrown at me. And he turns around and starts walking around looking for something on the ground, like a stick, to see if something really was thrown at him, but he can't find anything. He didn't do an exhaustive search. He didn't look under every single car, but an initial scan turned up nothing. And then he turns back to the forest and he doesn't see anything out there. And even though, again, he feels totally stressed out, like something's out here and I can't see it, he's like, am I going crazy? Did that really happen? Because I can't find this big stick that apparently flew past my head. So is this all happening in my head?
I ain't about to watch this shit. You know when you get to talking about stuff, it make you get to think about shit. Like, boy, I legit feel like somebody behind me while watching this mug. That's why I keep looking right there to see if I see some, man. Hell no, stop playing.
Big stick that apparently flew past my head. So is this all happening in my head? But regardless, he's totally freaked out and he sprints back inside the office and locks every door. 20 minutes later, Mike comes blazing up the access road. He stops in front of the office and runs up the stairs. Chris goes over, unlocks the door, and he lets him in. And Chris is about to tell him about this crazy stick throwing incident, but he can tell Mike is really upset about something. Probably more upset about whatever happened to him than Chris is about this stick throwing thing. And so Chris tables his story, he locks the doors behind Mike, and he turns to him and he says, "What's going on? What's wrong with you?" At first, Mike doesn't say anything. He just paces back and forth inside the office.
Ooh,
and then finally, Chris calms him down and he gets him to explain what happened. Mike tells him that he was down at the tool shed, which is about a half mile down the access road and about 20 meters off the road into the forest. And he's at the shed, it's open, and he's pulling out the different pieces of equipment he's going to bring back to the office. And he says all of a sudden, all the hairs on his body stand up. He's got goosebumps. And immediately he thinks, someone's watching me. And he turns around and there's no one there. He looks to his right and his left. He kind of pokes his head in the shed.
Oh, like shit. Was that on the video? I know y'all heard that, boy. I ain't tripping.
And there's no one there. He looks to his right and his left. He kind of pokes his head in the shed like it's
looking at me like that, boy. He did that on purpose, dog. What the hell? It's only story number one, though. You know what's crazy, though? I'm not gonna lie. I've had those moments before where you legit feel like, dog, I feel like somebody watching me or something. And I was big on going into, like, freaking woods and forests and ish. We always talk about nature on my channel a lot. Riding my bike and ish. I used to go by myself. Hella dangerous. But when you go in the mugs, though, you do feel like, I'm like, man, I feel like somebody's just, like, watching me somewhere. Because it'd be really hard to see you. Like, I'd be having, like, to look to actually see you, like I don't see nobody, but I don't know, it's just weird sometimes.
Equipment he's going to bring back to the office, and he says all of a sudden all the hairs on his body stand up. He's got goosebumps, and immediately he thinks someone's watching me. And he turns around and there's no one there. He looks to his right and his left. He kind of pokes his head in the shed like is someone hiding in the shed. There's no one in there. He walks to the back of the shed. There's no one behind the shed. And he's just totally stumped why he's feeling this way. He goes back to the front of the shed and he's going over in his mind what made him feel this way. And he can't put his finger on it, but he cannot shake this feeling of someone watching him. And it's making him totally anxious. So he gets all the things he needs from the shed as quick as he can. He locks it up, he turns, and he starts speed walking back out to his truck. When he gets about 5 meters away, he hears footsteps running right to left behind him.
What if I dropped all them damn tools? I'm sorry. I ain't like it, don't doing nothing. Boy, I used to be so scared. My mom used to piss me off this shit, make me go, it'd be like freaking 2 in the morning until I go downstairs to get the clothes out the dryer. Hell no. I used to sit there and cry for like an hour before I go downstairs. Cause like up north, like the basements be looking like dungeons. Door. I used to be down there scared. And you finally go down there, boy, grab like 3 shirts for you running up them stairs. I know that speed walk. You start off with the speed walk. My bad, I'm tripping. This some good ass storytelling though, cause I can feel it. I know what he's talking about. That speed walk, that boy get faster and faster, boy. You be dropped all of damn tools. You heard
As quick as he can, he locks it up, he turns, and he starts speed walking back out to his truck. When he gets about 5 meters away, he hears footsteps running right to left behind him back where the shed is. And because he was already completely on edge about someone watching him in the woods somewhere, he doesn't even turn around to see what that is. He knows he needs to run to his car and get inside and put steel between him and whatever is out there. Once he's inside, he locks the door, he turns on the ignition, and looks one last time in the direction of where he came from. And to his horror, there is a man walking into the woods right next to the shed, turning the corner behind and disappearing into the woods. His instincts were spot on. He was being watched. And that's when Mike hit the gas and sped back to the office. Chris then tells Mike about his stick throwing incident because all of a sudden that seems a whole lot more real, and they both agree that whoever threw something at Chris is probably the same guy who was hiding near the shed with Mike. Concerned this guy might come back and break into the office, they stay the night there and they watch the whole time. They don't see him again. And the next morning they file a report and they tell the incoming park rangers what happened. But after this, there were no more reports of this strange hooded figure roaming around the forest. And to this day, Chris and Mike have no idea who he is or what he wanted. But they can both agree, whoever he was bad news.
Yo, I'm glad it didn't get hurt though. Damn, man. Okay, John Longnecker, what the fuck going on that bitch? Let me go and get up out of here if I mess up future sponsors.
He is or what he wanted, but they can both agree, whoever he was bad news.
That was a name, boy.
In the summer of 2015, a young man named Paul was on his last day of a 7-day solo backpacking trip through a very remote area in Utah called the Dark Canyon Wilderness. Dark Canyon gets its name from its steep walls that block light in the morning and in the late afternoon. It's an area that's only accessible by foot, and it's not uncommon to go in there and not see another person the whole time you're there. That morning,
was
Paul
that
got
a real
in its
photo?
Light in the morning and in the late afternoon. It's an area that's only accessible by foot, and it's not uncommon to go in there and not see another person the whole time you're there. That morning, Paul got up and set off on a day hike that would take him through a very forested area up onto a plateau where he planned to camp out for the night. About a mile into the hike, he found some amazing elk antlers and he decided he wanted to keep them. So he threw them on his backpack and rested them at the top and continued on his hike. But the added 15 pounds of weight proved to be far more exhausting than he was anticipating, and very quickly he blew through all of his water. Even though he was within 1 mile of his final destination, this plateau, he decided to stop because he was so dehydrated, he needed to find water. So he puts his pack down, he puts the elk antlers down, and he starts walking around, and amazingly, he does find some water. Granted, it was kind of a gross puddle of standing water, but he figured, I can boil this, and it should be okay. And as he's preparing a fire to boil this standing water, he figures, you know what, if I'm making a fire here, I might as well just make my camp here. So he sets up his tent, and then he makes a fire, and he's about to start boiling this water when he realizes how dumb he's being. If there's a puddle of standing water right here, then probably just a little ways upstream, there's going to be some running water. Why don't I not boil this crappy water that will only yield, a couple sips of water, and go look for the running water where I can drink as much as I want? So he puts the pot down and he leaves all of his gear at the campsite and he begins walking up this mountain to hopefully find a stream. And after about a half mile of walking up this mountain, he finds this little spring. Immediately, he's down on hands and knees drinking as much water as he possibly can because he's super dehydrated. And after he's drank for quite a while, he reaches down to his belt where he kept his water bottles, and he realized he left all of his gear, including his water bottles, at camp. So he didn't have a way to collect this water. And so he's like, shoot, I gotta go back to camp.
Well, it wasn't that far,
back. I'm gonna burn a bunch of energy, but he's like, you know what can you do? I need the water. And so he gets up and he turns around and he starts walking back towards his camp. And immediately he starts to feel really anxious as he's walking back. He can't help but feel like someone's behind him watching him. And he kept turning his head thinking he's gonna see someone just over the mountain who's quietly stalking him. And he just could not shake this feeling. And so as he's walking back to camp, every little sound he hears is totally throwing him off. Every little rustling leaf, every little bird overhead, he's totally on edge because he's convinced someone is behind me or someone's over there, someone's watching me. He finally gets back to camp, he gets his water bottles, and he considered not going back to the spring because he didn't want to cover that distance again because of how stressful it just was. But ultimately, he knows he needs the water. So either he's gonna sit here for a really long time and boil a bunch of stagnant water, or he can just suck it up, walk to the spring, get some water, come back, and be good. Before he walks up to the spring, he grabs a really big stick to use as a club, and then he walks up. So now he's got some protection. And immediately, as he begins that half-mile trek to the spring, the anxiety pours right back over him, and he can't help but feel like someone is watching him. But he gets up to the spring, he fills his water bottles, he turns around, and he starts walking back, and he walks down this little rock face and lands on the trail he had just been on a minute ago, and he stops because he sees something on the ground that wasn't there before. A fresh mountain lion print is placed right in between two of his footprints that he had just made on his way back to the spring. Meaning, there's a mountain lion somewhere right around here that's not just watching me, it's hunting me. Paul doesn't really know what to do, so he runs to his campsite and gets in his tent and huddles in his tent for the rest of the night, hoping a mountain lion doesn't attack him. And fortunately, it does not. And what he thinks probably happened was when he picked up those elk antlers and put them on his backpack.
And I was wondering, like, he ain't think, like, how did these elk antlers get out here? But I ain't know. I was like, maybe they just fall off sometime. I don't know. I didn't want to say nothing. But I was like, you ain't stopped to think that, like, somebody put them there? I mean, I know the elk ain't just take his shit off.
And what he thinks probably happened was when he picked up those elk antlers and put them on his backpack and was walking around with them, he probably attracted
they
the
thought it was
it was an elk and therefore food.
Damn.
In April of 2020, a 17-year-old named
That's hella crazy. I didn't even think of that. Dog legit made himself a target for walking around with the mugs on. It was legit draining your energy too. I get it. I ain't gonna lie. That's a good trophy to take back. I'm not gonna lie. But imagine, like, if he'd had his water bottles and was right there collecting water and would already camped up, that mean the freaking mountain lion would have definitely caught him right there because he would have never went back. The fact that you left that mug probably saved your life. Damn. Well, it did. Shit. I'm glad I did all right, but that one was good. I ain't gonna lie. Sleep well.
In April of 2020, a 17-year-old named Sam, who was an avid outdoorsman, decided to go on a one-night hike in the Superstition Mountains in Arizona. The mountain's name has a bunch of supposed origins, but the one that's generally accepted is people are afraid of the Superstition Mountains because of all the mysterious deaths that have occurred there. And so because people would avoid these mountains in fear of mysterious death, it became these superstitious mountains. But Sam was not superstitious and regularly came out here to go hiking, in particular on this 8-mile loop that went through a canyon. And so this one night overnight he planned on doing was going to be on that 8-mile loop where he'd do 4 miles in, camp out, and then 4 miles back. And he planned to do it with a friend, but his friend at the last minute canceled, and so Sam teetered on not even doing it, but ultimately decided, okay, I'll just do it by myself because I'm very familiar with this area. On the day he was supposed to go do this hike, he had planned on getting there early in the day to have maximum lighting, but due to some unforeseen circumstances and traffic and bad road conditions, he didn't get to the trailhead until 5:45 p.m. that night. Sam knew it was a bad idea to start this hike so late because he was going to run out of daylight. He probably was not going to make it 4 miles to the point where he planned on camping out. But he figured with his good health and fitness, he could probably quickly make his way to the 2 or even 3 mile mark, and there were some suitable campsites there. And so he decided he would kind of risk it and just try to go as fast as he could and use the daylight he had to reach a suitable campsite. But he wasn't able to move as fast as he thought he could, and soon the sun was down and it's totally dark, and he's got his flashlight, but that only is able to shine like 10 feet in front of him.
See, y'all, man, see, that's what we're talking about. You gotta respect nature. If you go, hold up. We've seen this in like the last 2 or 3 hiking stories. Even one of them, even Mrballen said the same thing. All you gotta do is respect it. You be good. Cause I ain't gonna lie, Arizona is where I do all my my mountain hiking. I've been to like 4 or 5 different sites. I never heard of this one. I heard about this one, but I never actually really heard any stories about this one though. But man, I'm saying, cause you will see like snakes, man. It'll be rattlesnakes in that mug. It'd be spider. It'd be scorpion. It'd be hella crazy stuff. So if you're out there at night, man, you're not gonna see none of that crap, dog.
Dark, and he's got his flashlight, but that only is able to shine like 10 feet in front of him. And then at one point, he nearly falls off of this rock, and he knows had he fallen, he would have gotten really badly hurt, and he's 15 miles away from the nearest help, and he's in a bad cell phone service area, and the roads getting out here are treacherous. No one knows exactly where he is, and it dawns on him that you've made a pretty bad choice, and you should stop right now and make camp here and not try to risk it any further. And so as it happened, where he was, there was this forest right nearby, and he could see there was a clearing about 30 feet off the path when he shined his light. And so he walked into that clearing and he found it was a great spot to make camp. And in fact, on the edge of this clearing was the remnants of a fire pit. It was very old, but it at least showed someone had camped out right here, and they seemed to have made it just fine. So suddenly he was feeling pretty smart and he felt pretty good about where he was staying for the night. Now, Sam intentionally did not bring a tent. He liked to sleep on a sleeping pad with a sleeping bag over that, and then he would string up a tarp over the top of him in case it rained. And since this clearing was surrounded by a bunch of pine trees, he was able to string up his tarp over the top, and it was perfect. And pretty soon he had a fire going, and then he cracked open a can of beans and he began eating his dinner. And as he was eating, he started to get a sense that something was off, something was not right. He began scanning the tree line as if he was going to find something out of the ordinary, but his visibility was incredibly limited because he was sitting right up against a fire. And if you've ever sat next to a fire in a dark forest, your visibility is like 5 feet in a circle around the fire. You really cannot see beyond that. And his vision was also limited by all the pine trees that encircled his clearing. So he really could only see what was immediately around him, nothing else. And he starts thinking, that's gotta be it. Maybe I'm just nervous because I have no visibility. But as he's rationalizing this kind of bad gut feeling, a rock the size of a marble comes soaring into the campsite and lands at his feet. And he looks down at the rock, and immediately he connects that to that sense of dread he had. And he's looking around a little more aggressively now, but again, his vision is very, very limited. And so for the next 15 minutes, Sam is really aggressively scanning the tree line and listening really intently, and he doesn't hear anything, he doesn't see any more rocks get thrown. And so he begins to rationalize and convince himself that there's nothing wrong here. That feeling I have, oh, don't worry about that. He starts telling himself, you know, I must have kicked a rock. That's what it is. Or maybe a rock fell off a tree. But either way, it's something totally explainable and you got nothing to worry about. And after a little while, he convinced himself and he got into his sleeping bag under his tarp and he went to sleep. A couple of hours later, Sam wakes up and he has that same sense of dread, and now it's back with a vengeance. And he can't hear anything, he can't see anything, but he's definitely feeling like something is wrong. And at that moment, as he's listening really intently and looking really carefully, he hears the sound of rustling leaves. It sounds like someone walking through leaves about 30 or 40 meters away from his campsite. And initially, he can't tell if this person or animal is walking towards his campsite or away, but over the next 30 seconds or so, the sounds start to fade, and he convinces himself that, okay, they've left and everything's fine. But just in case, he wanted to grab his flashlight and shine it in that direction, and so he reaches next to him where he had left it when he had gone to bed a couple hours earlier, and he can't find his flashlight. And he's looking around for it, and he can't find it, and he's like, man, that's weird. I had it right here, right next to my body, and it's not here anymore. And that's when the alarm bells start going off in his head, because the only way this flashlight moves is if he moved it. And if it's not here, how did it move? And so he jumps out of his sleeping bag, he ducks out from under the tarp, and he's looking around on the ground in the immediate vicinity of where he was sleeping to find this flashlight. And as he's looking, out of the corner of his eye, he sees some light. And he turns his head, and in the same direction that he had heard those footsteps, those rustling leaves, when he was still laying down, he sees his flashlight laying on the ground about 10 meters away, which means someone or something had been less than a foot away from him to get this flashlight that was right next to him while he was fast asleep and totally helpless, and had moved it all the way over there. And immediately, Sam thinks to himself, that's a trap.
That light.
They are trying to lure me away from my campsite. Suddenly, he felt so scared he wanted to vomit, but he knew in order to survive this situation, he needed to keep his wits about him. So he puts his boots on and he grabs his knife, and he knows he's not leaving this campsite. In fact, he's going to build the biggest fire he can. He's going to stoke that fire as big as he can get it, and he's not going to go anywhere near that flashlight. For the next several hours, Sam just stood in the middle of his campsite holding his knife, preparing to confront whatever the heck is out in the woods. And over those several hours, he would hear footsteps approach his campsite, turn around, and leave. Every time the fire got lower, he noticed they would come closer and closer and closer, and when he would stoke the fire, they wouldn't come as close. But at about 3 a.m., he ran
This shit sound like a video game, dog. What the hell?
closer, and when he would stoke the fire, they wouldn't come as close. But at about 3 a.m., he ran out of firewood. So unless he went into the woods to get more, he'd be out. And he's certainly not going into the woods. That's the whole point, is to avoid the woods where this thing is. And so as the fire died down, Sam prepared himself mentally for whatever happened next, because he knew that with that fire gone, this thing was comfortable coming all the way in, coming all the way up right next to him to get the flashlight. And so finally, he hears the footsteps approaching. And before this, the closest they had come was maybe about 15 meters away. They were far enough away it didn't feel intimate. It was terrifying, but he had some distance. This time, they walk right up to about 3 meters away, but they intentionally come behind the thickest group of trees, so he can't see them. And it's still dark outside, and he's in that bubble of light near the fire, so he's blind to whatever's on the other side of those trees. But he knows they're there, and they've stopped. And for 2 hours, this poor kid is standing in the middle of this campsite, facing in the direction of whatever is behind the trees. Probably his imagination is going crazy at this point with what could be behind those trees, just waiting for whatever happened next. But ultimately, the only thing that would happen is the sun would eventually come up, and right before it actually popped over the horizon, this thing on the other side finally moved, it turned around and ran away, and it did not come back. And so when the sun finally did come up, Sam didn't just charge out of there because he's still thinking there could be a trap. He waited until it was totally full sunlight, and then he packed up everything he had, and he practically sprinted back to the parking lot, back into his car, and he drove nonstop for 20 miles until he got to a gas station where he could park and collect himself. And when he got there, he got out of his car, and he went in and he got a drink, and when he came out, he noticed someone had written something on the dust on the back window of his car. And he walks over and it just says, "Sleep well?" ? Sam is confident whoever was stalking him at his campsite is the same person or group of people that wrote this message on his car. And now Sam just wonders, what would have happened if I retrieved that flashlight? So that's going to do it, guys. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the story. I will pin the best comment at the top of the comments section.
Yo, that is creepy to think about. Like, what if I would have went and got that mug? Damn. And I ain't gonna lie, the whole time I was thinking, I'm like, yo, what if it's his partner just playing around, whatever? But if they wrote that on the card too, yeah, that mean they knew, like, you were the intentional target. Like, what the hell, man? Yeah, that hit me. Boy. And let me tell you something that's crazy, though. So, I've been to like 4 or 5 different spots in Arizona when it comes to mountain hiking, right? I don't think I know the name of none of them. We just like pick them. We just like look at this one, which one we buy. Oh, we did that one already. Let's pick another. Let's go another one. And on the part when he was in there and he was like, when it was like, he wanted to just run because he didn't know somebody was setting him up, whatever. That made me think, because it was like, I remember one time, dude, I went to one, right? And I was just hiking, but I wasn't doing like the hiking. I was following the little trail part, because the ones you some of them they have like a little trail you can walk and just follow your way to the mountain. But we normally like to go off that mug and just go up the mountain because it makes it funner. But either way it go, I remember one time I was going and I went off trail, and it was kind of getting dark, but it was people there though. So, but I kind of went off trail. I'm like, damn, man, I can't figure my way how to get back where I'm trying to go. Woo, woo. And you can just go down, but it ain't like you can just go down because it's a damn mountain. You gotta legit like work your way down or go on trail and follow the trail down. You don't just, all right, it's a mountain, all right, go down. It don't work like that. So I'm like kind of looking around like, damn, I'm kind of high up. Like, how did I get to this spot? I'm trying to figure out how to get back. And it started getting dark and stuff and dark, and you can freaking hear rattlesnakes. They won't make a sound, but if you close, then they will, because it mean they shaking their damn venom. Like hearing a rattlesnake is creepy as shit in Arizona. And freaking scorpions, dude, like, are creepy as hell, man. You can legit step on them mugs, they like would not freaking die. You gotta like step on that mug and twirl your feet till you like a pop, like hear like a snap, like a snap, and that's how you know it's dead, because they'll flatten themselves. It's like hella crazy shit. You can't really see them unless you got like a black light or something. And my friend, he had a shit ton of them that used to always be in his backyard, and he was like, you want to see him? I was like, yeah. And I was like, how you know one's just gonna be here? He was like, just watch. And it don't matter if your house is clean, dirty. It don't mean that they can just get in your freaking house, dude. But I miss Arizona, I'm not gonna lie though. But either way it goes, so we went in his backyard, dude, and he got like this black light, and he just flashed it, and all you see is just scorpions along, like little baby ones along the wall. And those are the freaking dangerous ones, because those ones, from what I hear, they will poke you, and they will keep on, because they don't know when to stop, and they don't know how to control their venom yet. So they'll keep on. Versus the big ones right here, they'll just bop your ass and run and get away with it. So I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, man, they'll never come in the house. He's living Like, nah, they don't. I don't know why I'm telling you the story. I don't know. But either way, I'm telling you that story. I do know why. Because you can see those out there too, and those ones are a big dog. Like, man, I mean, you see like black widows and shit in your home. Like, we had a nice ass home. It was clean, everything. But sometimes you would just see black widows in your home. Like, we used to get our house exterminated. The house was clean. It was just sometimes shit like you're in a desert. It just happens sometimes. You be in there nice and clean, playing the game and shit, chilling, and you looking like a random corner pocket you never looked in. Like, oh my god, that's a black widow. I think I still have a matter of fact, I still have a video. I'm gonna share it right here. It's from my Facebook, so it's like hella old. Don't judge me. Look at this black widow. Hold up. Let me see if I can zoom in. I hope that. Oh shit! Oh, that's my shadow. Ooh, scared the fuck out of me. That fucking black widow. I hope he don't jump. So I wanna go closer. Man, that's fucking crazy. Let me see, is that a male? Oh, it looks so nasty. I was reading this crap about they bite you, dude. Like, oh, he moving. Get the fuck out. A freaking black widow. I got some freaking mountain stories on here too. Crazy. Speaking of mountain, I got like mountain climbing stories on here too. They were hella fun.
Cloudy. Cloud. You say you got what? Holy shit. Yeah, I had to let you solo that one because I got. Oh! Shit! Woo, shit! Holy shit! Which way? The hard way. Let's go.
But dude, yeah, it's just, I don't know, crazy, man. Just gotta respect nature. That's it. So you gotta do respect the planet. I mean, you do stupid-ish, it'll kill you. And sometimes mistakenly, well, not your fault. I don't know if it's a mistake. Sometimes it'll just off you. But if you don't respect it, then it'll really try to off you. I mean, hey, you know, be easy. Enjoy your day, morning, night, whenever you watch this video. My bad for that long rant at the end, but I'm out.